So we open our Moya talks for the month of May. We're going to delve into design, development, and economic opportunities. And we have a great lineup for the month. And we start with Dennis Connor, our own Dennis Connor from Moya Design Partners. As you know, Dennis joined Moya Design Partners in December, attracted by how the firm strives for the sustainable development of the region and a more holistic understanding of design and architecture. A New Jersey native and a longtime Bethesda, Maryland resident, Dennis brings 25 years of experience in architecture and planning and a deep understanding and acumen of the complexity of the district's urban fabric. But more importantly, he brings his vision for a more livable, diverse, and resident district. Dennis' experience encompasses all kinds of projects in 6 states. He's responsible for over 3,000 housing units in DC, Virginia, and Maryland, and has always pursued excellence in design and sustainability. Currently, he is the designer in charge of the restoration of the historic Old Randall Elementary School in Washington, D.C., and among many other things. Those who work on his team know it better. Welcome, Dennis.
Yay!
Thank you, everybody. Nice to see everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to let me, for all of you to get to know me better.
Dennis, you are a New Jersey native. When and why did you decide to come to the DC metro area?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I'm from outside of New York City. My parents are born and raised in New York City. And so, I always aspired to live in New York. But when looking for schools, universities to study at, my parents were very much suggesting to look at Catholic University, and I was quite dismissive. But when I did come down on a beautiful spring day in 1992 and met people, I fell in love with the city instantly. It was very beautiful and very accessible, and that was very exciting to me. So something different. Excellent.
Yankees, Mets or Nationals?
Yes, for those of you who may know me, I'm a huge baseball fan. I grew up a diehard Mets fan because when I asked my dad to take me to a Yankee game when I was a kid, he said no way. He would take me to Queens instead, where he grew up. So I became a Mets fan. But after having a child and living in Capitol Hill, my son and I have become huge Nationals fans. So I'm a Nationals fan, diehard Nationals fan.
You're doing well this year, right?
They're okay.
So then, your brother is a successful musician, Grammy awarded and Grammy nominated. Is creativity a big thing in your family?
Absolutely. My parents were educators. My mom started out as an English teacher, and my dad a math teacher. And everyone in my family does something creatively. So my sister ended up being a teacher. My brother's a musician. My other sister has a graphic art degree. And I think that just stems out of education, not out of necessarily a passion for art, because I think if you have an experience of education, you'll be passionate about all sorts of forms of creativity.
Paula's face light up when you said that your sister was a designer too. Dennis, you have 24 years of experience in the area, and you have had a hand in the transformation of the urban fabric of the region. In your opinion, what are the major transformations you have observed in the area in architectural terms in those 24 years?
Yes, it really is so interesting because I came down here in 92 for school and then stayed. And a lot of the other folks on the call as well, they've seen this transformation too. Washington, D.C. for many years was very much a transient city. And it still is to some regards, but I think now it's a little bit more sophisticated and international. The desire as a place to live has really changed for people from outside this region. So as early on in in my career when I was working downtown. You work downtown, you buy lunch, you go to the park, but at night you go home. Or at least when we would go home at night very late, no one else was downtown. So downtown was not a place to really live. And many other of the successful neighborhoods in DC didn't exist yet. So all around the Navy Yard, that was very much industrial. All around, the wharf had not existed. All these different neighborhoods didn't really exist. And I think the transformation of the city has really stemmed from so many different facets. One, the metro. I mean, the transit-oriented development in DC was such a great foresight, and I think that as the environment in the DC region became very congested, certainly in the early 2000, use of metro was very transformative in neighborhoods. So, that's why you started seeing more development around metro stations. And then also the desire for culture really started to transform neighborhoods as well. So we started working on projects that were very much on the fringe of neighborhoods, but they were up and coming neighborhoods because of either the introduction of a cultural institution or maybe a supermarket. I mean, it was a big deal when the Whole Foods came into DuPont Circle and Peachtree. And then on top of that, we've seen the change in design as well. DC itself has a lot of history. It's the nation's capital. There's certain aesthetic theme to the city with the architecture, but the thought process in terms of what's appropriate for the city in terms of design has changed a lot too. So back in the 90s, there was a lot of postmodernism, and then in 2000, early 2000, late 90s, a lot of new urbanism. And I'd say in the last full decade, everyone has really embraced, a very modern and contemporary architecture. And buildings are no longer inward facing, they're very much outward facing. So there's a lot more mixed use and engagement with the community. But maybe that's just happened across the nation as well too. It's, everything we do has changed, has transformed into a more hospitality-like use. So, but I'm certainly glad to see that's how DC has become.
Moya is part of the Legacy Community Partners team that is bidding for the revitalization of Franklin D. Reeve Center, a historic building in the heart of the U Street corridor. What do you think? This may be obvious for designers and architects, but what do you think is the role of urban planners and architects in revitalizing these areas of the city that you've seen the transformation?
Well, that's a pretty good question, and tough though, because we're right at the beginning of the process. We joined a great development team with Dantes Partners and McKitty and Soto Architects. So it's a big group effort right now, and we generated a concept that has been put out there. But I think it's our responsibility to listen to the clients and the agencies and the community and really hear what people want and digest that. And then to try to help produce the best possible buildings and architecture that fit in. And this might answer one of the next questions. Maybe I can roll into it. I think I saw that, one of the ways we approached the design process for our initial submission was a collaboration with the architects, but also really trying to look at the neighborhood, understand the adjacencies to the neighboring buildings, We did massing studies of both the hotel and the office building, several, before we got them right. What makes sense, what doesn't make sense. We talked amongst each other, the principals. For the hotel, we had kind of three fairly cooked options, I think, aesthetic options. And then we talked with the other co-architects and then the developers. And then we selected the one that we all liked and moved forward. So I think that's probably the one that's the most appropriate in terms of being a good neighbor.
And for someone who fell in love in the city, as you said, and how easy it is to transit, what does this opportunity means personally?
Well, I mean, personally, it allows myself to be a practicing architect to not only work and practice in what I like doing, but also see the effects of that and see all those buildings that I've participated in some capacity, see them built. I think early on in my career, I worked for a firm that did some very large scale civic projects, and it's very exciting and really engaging to work on that. But they were in, for the most part, other cities. And then when I transitioned to the last firm and worked with a lot of great people there, you feel a great sense of pride when you see a building go up, whether it's in your immediate community, your own neighborhood, or whether you're down at the ballpark and you say, oh yeah, that's a building I worked on, and you can see the joy that people have just interacting with that building or the space next to the building or just the new streetscape that the building is creating and enhancing in the city itself.
From having worked with you, I know you're a very curious individual, and I would like to know, how do you inform yourself when you face a development like this, a design like this?
Well, I guess it goes back to the very first question of where I kind of come from. I think, yeah, I am a very curious person. I'm fairly on the quiet side in terms of that curiosity, but I think curiosity is very much stemmed from learning. So if you learn something, you want to learn more. You also want to share that knowledge. You get excited. You want to share that knowledge to your colleagues, your teammates, the other principals, and other designers. And for those of you who don't know me very well either, one of my great interests is seemingly rather boring. It's zoning and the entitlement process, but every site and every building has a maximum potential for development. So it's a really fun process to figure out and learn all the little quirks and tricks and things of how to maximize that potential. Because usually once a building is built, it's permanent for the next 50 or 100 years, and you can't then go back and add more. So I think that's one of the most fun processes to go through.
Okay,
and you're curious,
Within this process, let's go back to Reeves. Moya is designing a 180 guest room hotel that you mentioned, and 100,000 plus square foot office building that will be potentially the new seat of the NAACP. So from your perspective as a planner or someone with this curiosity, what will be the impact of such a place in DC?
Well, tremendous. I mean, it's such an interesting location too, because decades ago, it was the foresight of the well-known Mayor Marion Barry to bring the Reeves Center there on U Street in the first place. And the whole idea was to bring a government body to help as an incubator and generate jobs and help bring up a neighborhood that had been suffering economically. So, and that was done, but it was only an office building. So again, people would work there, and at night it would shut down, and no one would use it. Now, many years later, 14th Street corridor has really grown. U Street has always been what it is, but it has also grown in terms of larger developments over time, and more interaction with the metro station there, and also the growth of Howard University as well, and Shaw. But the Reeves Center represents that focal point between U Street and 14th Street as a main intersection, and bringing that all together. And what better way of representing that than a new development that has all the different facets of the urban life that we want. A place to work, a place to stay, a place to live, a place to own a home, retail, a place to gather, a place to explore, a place to empower people. So we're very lucky to be part of this team, because all those things are part of this vision. And also, knowing how the buildings interact, and how they're more outward facing now than opposed to the way buildings may have been, a decade ago. We anticipate that many of these buildings too will have more of that hospitality feel. So the hotel might have a really cool, funky restaurant that's on the ground floor that maybe even has a throwback to the old U Street corridor, and like a little bit of a speakeasy feel. And so people are kind of coming in and out of that. And then, an elevated roof terrace, so people are outside and looking over the streetscape. The office itself may have different interactions between the street and the plaza, and then with an institution. And these other residential buildings are going to be on top of some very interesting mixed use spaces too, a food hall, and some other features. So very interesting.
So I have two final questions before opening the floor. So I know the staff will want to ask you a lot of questions. I'm going to switch a little bit one question that you have there. I'm currently reading Chocolate City and Worthy of the Nation. And I know you're a nonfiction reader. What's the latest nonfiction book that you have read about DC or about the area that you would recommend?
Well, I think, truth be told, this past year, I've read a lot of historic fiction series. So I've gravitated towards some things, but one book that took me about 2 years to read, because it was so intense, I kept putting it down and picking it up and putting it down while I was reading other books, was The Warmth of Other Suns. And I definitely would recommend everyone read that. It was about the migration of Southern African Americans moving to the northern cities, and just really incredible. And there's a lot of interviews, and also President Obama was mentioned because he was a state senator in Chicago at the time, during one of the interviews of one of the women who was living in that particular neighborhood in Chicago. So he was her representative. But I think it's a really impactful story and history of the United States. And it also helps, it would help educate a lot of other people in the world right now.
Thank you, Dennis, for the recommendation. I will surely look at it. We have some questions from the audience. What architecture from RADA, what architecture style do you foresee blooming in the next decade in DC or nationally?
Well, certainly, I hope that we start to see a lot more buildings that are very expressive when it comes to green architecture. You know, there's a big push for net zero, right? That's happening in the DC area and other places. And, you know, all architects know things that have been done by people like Renzo Piano and, you know, so further across the world where you see these, you know, and also in many Asian cities that, you know, for these iconic sort of buildings. But I think hopefully we start to see a lot more of that at the local scale and more at the smaller scale, intimate scale. So, you know, buildings that are a little bit more obviously green and sustainable. And that's going to be interesting to see, because how do you design for that? I mean, we might have some more CLT office buildings too, which is pretty exciting. Other types of construction. So.
Well, it has two questions, Dennis. What project are you most excited to work on now? And what do you like to do for fun?
Well, right now, the most exciting project is the historic Randall project, because you know, in the past, I've worked on one daycare before, but I've never had a chance to work on a school project, and it's really fun to think about what could be in this school. We don't know yet. We're going through that process. So, you know, what will all these you know, future leaders of our world get to you know, see after this building is built. And so I hope what we come up with as a team is really fun for the children.
And what do you like to do for fun? That's the other question.
I can answer that.
Well, you know, fun, I guess, is just spending time with my family and enjoying my community, my neighborhood. So I live literally 1 block from the DC border. So it's a great spring point to keep exploring in DC, but then also explore in Montgomery County and get out to parks. Oh, fish. This past year, I've done a lot of fishing.
And I know you like to hike, right? And visit national parks.
Yeah, now I hike to fishing spots. So
Do you hike in the golf courses with Vinay?
not yet. I intend to.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, Vinay.
I think Vinay and Fede need to answer a few questions
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
We used to
In
go
behalf
out
of
for
them.
beers. We used to
No.
go out for beers.
So a couple of quick comments, right? One is, you know, Dennis had promised me he was going to wear a Hawaiian shirt, and his, you know, looks very proper. It's a little bit disappointing, Dennis, but it's okay. So one of the things that I think you guys should know about Dennis is that he's probably one of the most principled and disciplined guys you're ever going to meet. It'll drive you crazy, right? Because when we used to work, he would be in every day at 9 o'clock, right? And leave every day at 6 o'clock, right? And then when I left that job, I would call him all the time, text him. I would always get a call from him at 6:02, right? Because he did not believe in calling people or using his cell phone during work. It would drive me crazy. I'm like, Dennis, nobody's going to fire you if you text me, right? You know, between 9 to 6. I need to talk to you now, right? But he wouldn't do it. So one of the biggest things that he has changed, and it's absolutely mind-blowing and fascinating, and it's all due to Paula, is he's turned into a texting machine, right? He texts. He does Teams. I can't even catch up. because
I
he's
know,
doing all.
Vinay.
We know
You're,
you
you're
don't catch
falling
up.
behind. You're falling behind.
Yeah, I know he's doing all three at the same time, which is crazy because I'm like, Dennis, what am I supposed to follow here? But and the other crazy thing about this is that, you know, again with Dennis, you know, it was always working with him was such a good experience, you know, professionally, that we never really talked about work, except we would always go to lunch at Nando's Peri Peri on Fridays, and he wouldn't shut up because all that talking that he wouldn't do during the week, he would talk. So he wouldn't let you eat. He wouldn't eat. And finally, we had to tell Dennis, Dennis, enough. I don't want to know about your cousin. But seriously, though, I think he's probably one of the, I think, as we all know, one of the best design guys you're going to meet. I think, you know, as a firm, I think maybe at some point we should send a portfolio of all the buildings that he's done, especially in DC. You know, I've always enjoyed working with him. Sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but.
Thanks today for the nice words, but
All right.
yeah, no, seriously, it's I think you know, it's really nice to have good friendships and camaraderie come out of the workplace. But yeah, I mean, when you're working and you enjoy what you're doing, you know, the result is that you are highly focused. So that's okay.
Any words? Because you guys have worked together, so I gotta get some behind the scenes here.
For me, it has always been a pleasure working with Dennis. It's just like it's like a couple, no yes or no's. No, we always just like go alone, and we work seemingly together. We always we are in line for whatever reason. I don't know. We do not dissent on what it should be done. So for me, it's a pleasure to work with him. It's just like we are the same person, but I don't know. It's to me it's great. It's a great experience. Has been before and it is today. So I'm really excited that he's with us, and we get together to work again.
But Dennis has mentioned that, you know, your barbecue absolutely sucks. So just so you know, he won't say that to your face, but he said that.
So you guys know Federico does some amazing barbecues. I don't know what's the deal here.
No, the truth is that we had a little barbecue at my house before the pandemic, probably, and my son will forever refer to Fetty as that guy who cooked that good chicken. I'm like, yeah, and he's like, well, is he gonna cook it again? And I'm like, you know,
No,
that to
you
him
don't
was
want
like
to.
that was the
No,
highlight
I
of
don't.
his.
Dennis, I don't recommend it. Not in your house.
Well, I cannot burn anything because his barbecue is set away. She's saying that because I burned my fence doing a barbecue. Well, actually, my neighbor's fence. But that's okay. You name the day, Dennis. I'll do that chicken again for your son.
That sounds good.
But if you are promising, you are gonna have to ship internationally to and nationally here to the entire team, right, guys? We just this promises of food like that.
Or I can travel to each destination and do it.
Un buen asado es un buen asado.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Spain. That's for sure. I'm expecting a tour from Rodrigo.
You're very welcome. You're all very welcome to come.
Dennis, thank you. It's
It's been a
great.
great interview, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. This was fun and you know, very embarrassing at first, but I just, you know, you do what you have to do to you know, get to know each other and help out people. So it's all good.
And you guys noticed that he put the tie for us.
Yeah, I never wear a tie.
I
Daddy
mean,
knows
this is
that.
big deal. This is big deal. You guys are here for a treat. I am excited to be working with you, Dennis, and it is a pleasure for all of us. I think that I speak in behalf of the entire team. You're a great mentor for the team members and a great partner to work with. So
Well, I
thank
think
you.
we're all looking forward to the great work to come and the work to continue. And so it's a lot of hard fun. So
Definitely.
let's have fun and keep
Keep
to
clicking.
inspire each other.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming and for logging in. And thank you, Dennis, for accepting the invitation.
Take care, everybody.
As if you had a choice.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Fun.